It's become rather obvious that when you look at the gaming industry, what it's turned into over the years is synonymous with a dive bar. You look at the games that people pick up nowadays, and you look at how people judge their experience when playing a game, you'll notice that a lot of games like, let's say, Enshrouded, Pal World, Ark, Survival Evolved, you'll look at games like Rust. You'll look at a lot of these survival genre games. Another great example would be Lego Fortnite, that extra game mode that Fortnite added in. You'll notice that a lot of games have become absolutely synonymous with a dive bar. It is this game that you'll pick up, typically early access, right? Valheim, another example. And what people do is that they pick up a game that really doesn't have much content within it. And typically these games are multiplayer. And what's happened in the modern landscape is that in some sense, dive bars have been replaced by these games. You pay the price of admission. You pick up and play the game. There's not much content there, right? There's the standard characteristics of a survival game. Okay, you build a pickaxe, you build a hatchet, you build the same things that you've built in how many games previously? Well, Minecraft is the first one. So many of these games copy off of the formula of what a Minecraft game is. They add their little overtones, their little skins. Fundamentally, however, these games are all the same. And when you look at the game design, you look at the content placed within these games, it's very bare bones. What, you get a couple of enemies, let's say 10 different enemy types, maybe even less in certain games. Well, let's say it's not 10, we can say it's like 50. We can say it's somewhere higher than that, like in Ark or Pal World. Some of them are not too imaginatively done, but it's passable. Doesn't matter, however. You run through a world that is largely empty, doesn't have a lot of interesting or intrinsically unique landmarks, unique game events, right? Going into an abandoned castle, and then you're wandering through, there's little secret little cubbies, right? You're finding gear, you're going through and you're seeing, okay, I got into the keep of the kingdom or the castle, whatever it is. Behind the throne was a special axe, and that axe has specific properties or special features about itself that's different than any weapon I can normally craft or normally attain through drops on enemies or whatever, right? Those epic gaming moments where you're like, I just found something that's unique and cool, something that is different from what is typically offered to me. You don't get that in these games, and in fact, what you get instead, empty, open worlds, just landscapes with trees, landscapes with water, landscapes with maybe a mountain here and there. Well, that's the basics of game design. That's the basics of an open world game design. That's the basics of a world that you're throwing yourself into anytime you pick up a survival game. So what they're doing to you is that they're offering the bare minimum. You pick up the game. Some excuse that many people come up with, it's been a long-standing excuse. The game's fun with friends. Is the lamest excuse. If a game is fun with friends and the game itself is not fun and then it's even more fun with friends, if you have to create your own fun, then you're not buying a game. You're buying a dive bar. You're purchasing the price of admission to go to some place where there's a couple of random drinks, probably cheap, and then you're just sitting there. You don't really care about what the location is. It's just a place to throw yourself in there and talk with your friends, okay? So what is it? It's a platform for just simply having a conversation, or it's a medium, a vessel for having a conversation with your friends. Well, there's all kinds of things in life that you can do to have an excuse for talking with your friends. Picking up a game and buying a game just for the dive bar experience has incredibly watered down a lot of game development. A lot of these games, when you look at where they end up at when they finish after they've released, it's not really that much more than what you started with. And let's act like they do add content. It doesn't matter. You're picking up a game, and noticeably, most people have become much less critical of the experience that they're being given. The amount of money that you're paying, are you getting an experience that's worth the time and money investment? Are you getting that back out of the game and the content provided through the game? As I said before, you go through an interesting castle and there's that keep and you can get in interesting locations, interesting weapons. You go through the keep and you find in the courtyard 2 random Leviathan enemies, a dragon, let's say, versus a serpent. And they're just in this seemingly perpetual battle. It's like they're having a perpetual war inside the keep. Let's say that there's also something interesting about it, right? Clearly they're sitting here and they're fighting each other and it's probably been happening for a long time. But they're chipping away at each other's health bars, not doing enough damage to noticeably kill each other in any time soon. So the player can make the choice in that moment, sudden gaming moment. You get to choose, do I fight the dragon, do I fight the serpent first, or do I attack both, right? You can have those awesome gaming moments going into cool locations that offer cool scenarios and situations to get immersed into. That is the greatest element of great gaming. You have immersive moments that occur that brings you into the world and makes you realize there's something more going on here. And that right there, those kind of moments tells a story already about the world. Okay, abandoned castle, weapon behind the throne room's chair, right? You see these interesting things and you can start telling a story through unique loot, unique scenarios that occur in the game. What gaming has now become is an excuse to talk with your friends. You pick up a game, you pay some amount of money, and you brainwash yourself as you're playing the game that you got your money's worth because you're sitting there and you're just talking with the people that you know. Well, we don't even know if you have interesting friends. We don't know if you have friends that are good to listen to. Maybe they're idiots and they just blabber on and you're getting no value out of the game or your friend group because we're acting like all friend groups are worth hanging out with. They're not. So not only has gaming become a dive bar, but now it's become a dive bar where you just waste your time. Most people don't really always have a great friend group to hang out with. Some days you're hanging out with your friend group and they don't have anything you really want to listen to. They don't have anything really to say. So what's the point of picking up a game just so that you can listen to your friends talk about some random crap? What, they're going to gossip about something? Okay. You bought a game. You spent money on a game for doing something that, quite realistically, you could just enter a chat room. Gives you something else to focus on and whatever. But having that additional thing to focus on does not remove the fact that gaming has to be judged. Gaming has to be judged within the lens of, and not judged too unrealistically, but you cannot allow yourself to get sedated within the friendship trance of playing a game with your friends and you just stop questioning, did I spend my money on a game that was worth it? Did I spend my money on a game that is providing content and quality content back onto me? Another issue with these games, they throw too much random content, redundant content everywhere. It's the same stuff and it's all randomized. You go to one random location, okay, I find this random thing that really doesn't seem to have much reason for being there, besides being random content to be randomly generated in random location. Then there's a bunch of empty space, and we're not even going to talk about the empty space, right? There's a bunch of empty space where nothing interesting is happening. There's so many ways that you can build an interesting world when you make an open world game design. You can jam pack it with interesting moments. Let's say again, you're in an open world area. You're just running around and you suddenly stumble upon a shed and there's a dead body laying next to the shed. You're checking it out. You're looking around. You notice that there's a zombie dog sitting around inside of its kennel or whatever. The dog is asleep. You walk up to the dog. Suddenly the dog awakens and it starts attacking you. Okay, you take out the dog. It's done. Then you find a key, let's say inside of the dog, or you find the key behind the dog inside the dog shed. Then you open up the shed that the dead body's right next to. And then a spirit comes out, some kind of wraith or whatever, and it attacks you. And now there's a boss fight. That right there is what I'm talking about. Game design. You gotta give your player a game to play. You gotta give them events that matters. You gotta give your player something that fascinates them, something that gets them thinking, what is the world I'm stuck into? What is this world filled with? And when you take out, you kill the wraith. Here's the other thing that happens. Let's say that there's a random cellar inside of that shed. You go inside the cellar and let's say there's a table full of really unique potions. And let's say it unlocks for you 5 new recipes, unique recipes in the game from those potions. That right there is game design. It's making things immersive. It's making them a part of a world, a living world, a gameplay-oriented world. Giving your players something to interact with, something that brings fascination to the mind and not only a challenge. You want a good simulation. That's why people buy these games. And that gives a great base of gameplay to experience with your friends. Now there's a reason to play this game co-op, right? You want to pick up a game with your friends because there's something to see with your friends, not just an excuse to talk with your friends. The game has to give you things worthy of being spoken about. The game has to give you things that are worthy of experiencing. A game has to offer so much value that dragging your friends along with you to play that game is a worthwhile experience. Rather than every game I pick up, it's just an excuse for me to sit down, we're going to have a conversation, and I'm going to do the same things that I've done in Minecraft. Again, in a new game with a new skin. And something else to mention about what games have become is that you also will notice that these games don't have a fundamental game loop, gameplay cycle, that there's some kind of interesting, immersive grind loop that you can get stuck into. Not the lazy grind loops where a developer will make one little piece of content and then they just recycle the gear, recycle the content within the game, recycle the enemies, recycle whatever, recycle even what you have to do in order to, let's say, level up. Like in Pal World, to level up, you capture the same pals 10 times over. Well, why isn't it that to level up, I capture a pal, I get good experience for that, and then I level up that pal by fighting tougher pals. I level up that pal by fighting bosses who are the evolutions of that pal. I go and fight bosses, and those bosses reward me with large amounts of XP for defeating them. And there's other ways to make it interesting too, making there be little milestones. And this isn't, let's say this is something that isn't even required, right? It's optional, but it just helps leveling up your pal or whatever. In whatever game that you're playing, this little follower that you have that you can level up, there's little challenges that gives you bonus XP. You can still max out your little follower just fine. But if you want extra XP, the game gives you interesting challenges to level up, right? Equip your follower with a hatchet and have them kill 10 enemies with the hatchet. Equip your follower with the throw the hatchet skill and they get 5 kills with the throw the hatchet skill. Have your follower get a kill on a boss with burning damage or some kind of interesting way to play the game. It nets and it boons you with some kind of reward that is optional. It's a challenge, but that optional challenge that you do helps speed up the progress or also rewards you a permanent stat bonus, right? Cool, interesting gameplay ways to expand upon how you're upgrading the different RPG mechanics within the game. That's just another example of the game mechanics that you don't see in a lot of these modern games. They're not throwing at you a bunch of interesting RPG mechanics that do not waste your time. They add content, they add experience, they provide layers to the gameplay experience.